I had no doubt I will be a professional rugby player. I achieved that, but what people don't realize is when you achieve your goal, keeping it, that's when the hard work really begins.
Welcome to the CEO DNA, the podcast where we go beyond the titles, the press releases, and the polished success stories to uncover the raw, unfiltered truths behind entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Michael Kloep, and today's episode is not just about business. It's about purpose, disruption, and the weight of responsibility that comes with leading a movement. Today, I'm sitting down with Ben Harvey, a CEO who isn't just scaling companies. He's on a true mission to transform mental health at a global level. As the CEO of Rapid Transformational Therapy, Inner Belief, and the Marisa App, Ben is combining human experience with AI to break the barriers of traditional therapy to make life-changing mental health support accessible to millions of people. But behind the mission, there's a deeper story in his conversation where, cutting through the hype, we will challenge the ethics of AI in therapy, the fine line between impact and profit, and the sacrifice Ben has made to get there. This is not a conversation filled with easy answers. This is about hard truths, bold innovation, and the cost of ambition. So let's dive in. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
What is for you the DNA of a good CEO?
What I've learned over the last 20, 25 years being in business is the ability to fail fast and take responsibility for your company's failures. So with the people in my team, whether it's my old businesses or this company now, we have to push the boundaries. And if people are coming to me with success after success after success, I then question, well, how far are you pushing these boundaries? How are you going to create innovation? I have so many failed attempts in different businesses in my early career, because for me, real innovation, real success comes from going probably further than people have gone before, or go into places that people haven't even considered going. So a great CEO creates a culture where people don't feel restricted, where they feel that they have not just responsibility, but they have the authority to be able to go and operate, knowing that if it doesn't quite work out, I'm there to be able to support them, be able to either find a way to give them the right answers, or we go, it's okay. It doesn't matter. We tried this, it didn't work. I have this idea of kill or cure. Can we cure it? And can we try and make it better? Or do we just have to kill this concept, kill this project, kill this idea, and move on to the next? So for me, it's just creating that culture of accepting to push boundaries, huge forgiveness, and giving people support to go and explore everything they possibly can in their role.
Really, really interesting to really hard push boundaries and also understand that that this all-in method is really important. How did it start with you? Quite early?
So my first job was a professional rugby player. And at 18 years old, I had the honor of representing my country at under 18. So I played for England, made the 2001 tour to Australia, Canada, New Zealand. And when I came back off of that tour in September 2001, I signed an academy contract at London Wasps. And that was my first experience of true leadership. Lawrence Dallaglio was the England captain at the time. Nigel Melville, who's an incredible coach. And going into a elite professional sports environment, I didn't really understand at that point. It was setting me up for my future endeavors, because I got to see the way an incredible team operates, from our nutritionists, from our fitness coaches. We had psychologists, but all the way through to the coaches on the field, the logistics, to every aspect. And Wasps were 2003 when it became European champions, when the Heineken Cup. So I was really in the best team in Europe, making it very hard for me to break through into the first team, because I had Lawrence Talalio, Paul Volley, Joe Worsley in the back row, who are the best in Europe. So even as my rugby career didn't go where I expected it to, as this young international, it really set me up for understanding what true leadership and elite performance looks like.
It's so interesting. I think so many successful entrepreneurs have their roots often in sports, that they had been like mastering one of the sport very, very well. And because you learn so much, you learn the discipline, you learn, but also how a whole system works, because it needs to be almost to a perfectional level when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to other things.
Those small details, it's full-time.
Mm-hmm.
It's 24/7, 365 days a year. And the thing about professional sport, every single week, you have to turn up and go all in. You have to go and face your competition. There's nowhere to hide. So you're put in this incredibly powerful environment. It teaches you to, like I said to you earlier, you have to go all in, because every week there's nowhere to hide. And on Monday, you have to sit down and guess what you do? You analyze your performance. Even if you've won, you go and look at the things you didn't do well. You look at, and you're not sitting there celebrating the fact we've beaten whoever it may be on the Saturday. We're sitting down on the Monday, and the first thing you do is look at every single detail that could have been better.
Wow.
And then we call it world-class basics.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on the world-class basics, make sure you've got all of that covered, and then you move on to the next.
When do you celebrate?
It's a really good question. Celebration in that point of my life, we didn't really celebrate until kind of end of season. So it was really a combination of 6 months of working together as a team
and being the best version of yourself.
The
and
best.
saying, how can I do? What can I improve? Every time 1% better.
1%. But then doing that, knowing that you've got another 14 players on the field, 22 players in the squad that you rely upon, and a very defined responsibility for what you have to do on that field. I remember a game of rugby I played up at, in Manchester against Sale, and I scored a try at the end of the first half, and I scored a try at the end of the game to win. And everybody was celebrating. We had the long coach journey back to London. And on the Monday, sitting down to kind of go over my performance, and I got told how awfully I'd played.
Oh, wow.
Because playing as a 7 in the back row, for me, it was how many tackles I made, how many breakdowns I got to, how many turnovers, all of these things that were my job. And then I had a winger, 2 wingers and a fullback that would have scored that. That was their job. They would have scored that try. In fact, they would have scored the try way better than I did. If I had done my role that I was supposed to, it wouldn't have come down to the last play of the game for us to win. Because if I'd done the tackles, if I'd been at the breakdown, if I'd done the turnovers, the things that was my job, my responsibility, we wouldn't have been in that situation. And that was maybe at that point 19, 20 years old. And I had that realization of, even though it hurt, because in the moment you feel like, you know,
I saved the day.
I've won the game. No. I hadn't done my job, and we wouldn't have had to wait till that last play to win the game if actually I'd done the things I needed to do.
To really understand also, what's the job to do actually here. Okay, but then you started in rugby, very successful. But when did you do the shift to say, I start my first business?
So 2001, money in rugby wasn't great. The game had only gone professional in, I think, 1995. So I had a few options. I got offered a chance to go to Sandhurst, officer training, but that wasn't for me. University, and I decided to take a year off. And then I got offered a job working for this amazing advertising agency called BLM, or Booth Locket Making, in London, in Soho. And whilst I was a professional athlete at Wasps, I was working 20 hours a week as a media planner and buyer in London. So I had this balance because rugby gave me the ability to push my body to the limits. but within the environment of working in this huge ad agency, top independent agency in the UK at the time, I had to challenge my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And being a rugby player meant nothing there. I had a job. I was at the bottom of the pile. Every Monday I had to go in. They'd send me into the press room, and I had to cut out the ads of every one of our clients and put it into a press book. So it was really humbling. Walking into Twyford Avenue in Ealing Common, Wasp training ground back then, as a professional rugby player. We shared it with QPR because Chris Wright owned both clubs. So, you're surrounded by stars and you feel like you're part of that. And then other side of it, I'm in this dark room with all these newspapers, magazines, cutting out the ads, putting them into the press book. And that was my entry into the world of media. But something got me. Something made me tick. The same feeling I got when I was running around on a rugby field, when I was sitting in a boardroom, listening, not having a voice, having to just observe and learn, and seeing the way these incredible people, Pippa Glucklich, Paul Van Barthold, Pedro Avery, these people that they didn't realize at the time had lit something in me. Rob Clearwood lit something in me. Be like, okay, well, I love rugby. I love this too. So when 3-4 years later, when my career wasn't going where I thought it would in rugby, I was very fortunate because I had this media career and I'd gone up the ranks quite quickly. So I left pro sport at 24, faced depression for the first time, went full-time working for the Bristol region of booth locket making, CBLM, with Rob Clearwood and that team. And long story short, I launched my first business at 27 after coming out of a period of what really looked like failure. Ben, 18, playing for England, under 18s, signed as a professional rugby player. 5-6 years later, that dream was gone.
Wow.
And the career wasn't there. The coaches stopped calling me, the selectors stopped watching me, and the career that I genuinely believed since I was 12, 13 years old, I got a scholarship to an amazing rugby school at 13. I had no doubt I will be a professional rugby player. I achieved that. But what people don't realize is when you achieve your goal, keeping it, that's when the hard work really begins. And when that dream got taken away from me, I had two choices. Continue on this path, fighting for something where I knew I could still be a pro athlete, but it probably championship level. Did that really reflect who I am as a person? Or did I have to face the hard truths that what I believed my life would be? I genuinely believed I'd be playing for England, British Lions. I had no doubts that's where I was going. And for many different reasons, that didn't. And in that moment, I remember making that decision. And the feeling is hard to describe. Saying goodbye to my identity, everything that I felt represented who I was as a person. I made that decision that, okay, it's done. Moved into business and then fought mental health and depression for the first time until 27. And I decided, okay, well, this is my new mission. This is my new team. This is my new
Identity.
Wow.
Very deep. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so important for so many listeners because I think so many also CEOs, entrepreneurs and founders have the identity so much with their business, with their baby, with what they developed over the years, where they spent so much hours and days and nights with their birthday with and so on. But it's very important to understand it's deep in us. We define the identity. This is who I am and this is who I'm not. And sometimes it's just important to make also the choice. It's time to cut it off.
Yeah.
And you did that. And then you build a very successful career also in business, right? So you build one of the top 10 UK independent agencies. How did this go?
So yeah, I'm 27 years old. It's 2009, it must have been. And I launched this company called Virtuoso, very early in digital and performance media. So I took the traditional agency model, realized that it wasn't scalable, margins were getting less and less and less. And my first three clients, BMW, Barclaycard, and Vodafone. And I have no idea how. You know, when things are moving so quickly.
Yeah, you just get the clients, but you need to deliver at one point as well.
I think it was Richard Branson that said no, just say yes and then, and work it out. And that's what happened. So rather than charging them like an agency would, I asked them, what does success look like? Barclaycard told me they needed credit card applications and they would pay. BMW said we need more test drives. And Vodafone said, I want paying contracts. So I said, okay, pay me on that. Pay me on the success that I deliver. Also, creative and design was slowing everything down. I haven't worked with their creative agency. I said, no, I've brought in one of the best creative directors, ex-Disney. We're going to do all of that for you for free. What? I don't want to charge you those barriers. I don't want to make it hard to work with us. Here's my only caveat. It's for you, exclusively for you, but you cannot give or use that with any of the other agencies. And that's what we did. We scaled BMW, Barclaycard, Vodafone to a point where the big agencies, the WPPs, Omnicoms, etc., Group M, were like, who is this? Who is this guy? What's he doing? And I was running these campaigns under the radar. And yeah, we went from a startup to being acquired by, back then called XL Marketing, now known as Zeta, a big public company in New York, but two amazing men, John Sculley and David Steinberg, saw something in me, saw something in the business. So within 3 years, we scaled that business, become probably the largest independent performance agency in the UK, competing with my good friend, a guy called Jim Mansfield, who was running a business called Intella. And yeah, I went from being on my hands and knees, wondering what I was going to do with my life and my career, to selling my business to David Steinberg and John Sculley, the former CEO of Apple and PepsiCo.
Interesting. How big was your team then at one point?
We were so agile. We were doing a good amount of revenue, 8 figures plus, and there was 15 of us.
Nice. Yeah. So you really keep it agile and focus on delivery and outcomes and what things matter.
I think about this a lot. I think about team structures and leadership and how you create collaboration.
Right.
And Virtuoso sold with 15 people. And I came from a career which was a rugby team of 15 people. And I thought about the psychology and the way in which people within the team trusted one another, the way they operated, our speed, how agile we were. And then I had to go into this much larger business. I think Zeta, we ended up scaling even bigger now, thousands and thousands of employees. But at that point, 15 people, the revenue we were generating per head was truly exceptional. But the culture, we truly were a family. I remember Fridays used to come and nobody wanted to go home. And Sunday evenings, team would be messaging one another because we were so excited to get back into the office on a Monday to work on the projects. And
so how do you build this culture?
Sharing success. Truly sharing success. So
how do you do this?
I run a company really transparently. So
that means when you got a big deal and the money's in your bank account, you share this success?
More than every single day we had performance reporting. So the team would know on a daily basis how much revenue we generated, what our operating costs were, what our gross operating profit was, all the way down to EBITDA.
So fully transparent?
Fully transparent, but sharing in that. So if we get to X, Y, and Z, my team would double their salaries every month.
Is money the only driver to build a good culture?
No, many people, the financial recognition isn't. It's often, so creative is a really good example. Creative people, creative minds often weren't motivated by making lots of money. Money was good, but it wasn't the thing that defined them. But giving them the ability to see how they're creative, how they're copied,
touch lives,
and actually created performance. So performance mindset was everything that I did. So I could turn around and go in on a Monday and go, wow, this ad campaign we did over the weekend, you've changed the headline, changed the call to action, you've just increased our revenue %. And guys, I'd call them up, celebrate, we'd recognize it, because often in our world, as you know, we look at the media buying, we look at all of these things that we tangible, but ultimately I look at teams like Formula One. Everybody goes and celebrates Lewis Hamilton. But if you look at the level of detail, how big a team is in Formula One, and how each and every single person at the top of their game and contributing to elite performance, Lewis is never going to win.
True. So how do you keep this standard in companies, right? Because you said look like Formula One. So they keep the standard extremely high and always see how can we get a 1% better.
Common purpose.
Common purpose.
Yeah, common purpose. So
because you do have also sometimes people call them C or D player or who might don't fit, or their ambition is also not that high to play on the highest league. So you need to replace them.
So for me, I think it's really finding out a person's why. So what is it? We spend more time with the people we work with than we do our friends and family. And that's something that I realized very early in my career. So if this is going to be the people we spend the majority of our waking hours with, how do I understand who they are, not just when they're sat at their desk, but what's the things that really tick? What's the things that inspire them? And by understanding that and coupling it with the things that they're exceptionally good at within the work environment, I would literally sit down and go, where within this company I direct you so that you feel that every day you're coming to work, it aligns with your purpose, your values, your principles. And it's incredible how effective that can be, but also as a CEO and a leader, how it makes you really think about your own leadership, makes you think about your business, and it makes you think about the direction you're going to go in commercially. So, okay, I might have a team that are extremely passionate about charity. So, okay, let's go and work with clients in the charity sector. And then recognition. So how do we give each individual recognition that makes them feel valued?
Yeah.
And some people, it's simply about giving them respect, allowing their teammates to also turn around and give them thanks.
Right.
And that just becomes a way in which we operate, where we treat one another.
Wow. Yeah. Very interesting. I think also for you then, managing this one company, then also moving to Zetna Global, where you Zetna, how do you pronounce it?
It's Zeta.
Zeta, and you help them also to become a unicorn.
I was with the team for 8 years.
Wow.
So 8 years in that business, headed up UK and Europe. Had to learn very, very quickly. So running a company that's doing kind of 8 figures to stepping up to this hundreds of millions and finally getting that kind of unicorn.
What did you learn in this exponential growth? What was one of the key things that they did right, what we as CEOs can learn from?
So from a leader, David was a king of generating working capital, and cash, and cash is king in a high growth business.
Right.
But there was a relentless work ethic. So I was kind of 2 weeks in London, 2 weeks in New York. Everything was a blur. And I think it was John wrote a book called Moonshot. I think one of the quotes they shared with me is, don't tell me to shoot for the stars when there's footprints on the moon. and they have zero fear of the unknown. And David had come from this telecom background. And here he was working what was a data company, an ad agency. We specialized in education. But he looked at it very differently, in terms of what does this business need to be able to exponentially grow? Is it just more working capital? Is it talent? Is it acquiring companies that are so far ahead of where we are that it's better to acquire than to build? And talent, people. That's the one thing I realize is if you have the best talent with a shared ambition and goal, you can build something special.
Mhm.
And you have to have true belief in leadership, but also in one another.
Very interesting. So you built after your sport career, some quite successful businesses. Also participated in some of the exits quite well, but then it always came back to mental health.
Yeah.
Why is this the case?
Because here's the truth. During my success in business, my personal life fell apart completely.
How can that be? You so successful in a business life. You make good money. You have nice clothes. You drive a nice car, I assume. You're all fine. Where's this emptiness?
I was obsessed with my business, and I consciously made sacrifices to my own personal life to ensure that my business was a success, that my team were a success. And as a young 20-something, early 30-year-old guy, I neglected my responsibilities as a husband and as a father. That's one perspective. Other people will say, well, Ben, you're a great guy, full of love, just had the wrong partner. And I come from a working class background, as did my ex-wife, and we were in a completely new world. I'm working with some of the greatest people to do this. John Sculley's a true legend. 3 billionaires on our board. And I guess I was in awe of that. And I just absorbed it and wanted it so much that just became my life. That became my obsession, and the obsession that allowed me to be so successful. But here's the thing about obsession. There's a very thin line between obsession and addiction. And it's a dangerous line. So as my marriage fell apart in my late 20s, I sadly went through a really painful journey with that divorce where, my ex-wife, rightly or wrongly, and again, I don't want to talk about it too publicly, my children were stopped given access. And that was when I had to face my biggest battle. Because it didn't matter how successful I was in business, losing the two people that mean the absolute world to you. And it didn't matter every single waking hour, and even when I slept, I was feeling pain. And that's when I turned to alcohol and also to drugs. And I had a brand new battle. A battle that led me to nearly losing my life. And a battle that meant 2018, 23rd of November 2018, I had a choice to carry on and die or to go sober and stop everything. And luckily, I did that. Didn't go to the doctors, go to rehab. I just made a promise. That promise meant I changed my life in one decision. I then had a very interesting phone call by a guy called Ollie Phillips, former England rugby player, played for Team GB in the Olympics, sevens. And sometimes, life, there can be serendipitous moments where it's far bigger than us. He had no idea what I was going through. Then we go into Everest. we're going to try and break a world record. We're going to play a game of rugby at base camp. And somebody's dropped out. And I know this is the type of thing you like to do. What he didn't realize is 2 weeks earlier, I'd just made the decision to go sober, stop alcohol, stop self-medicating. And I was fighting for my life. And the words came out my mouth. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll be there.
Wow.
But what I realized is if I went and did the medical at that point, they wouldn't even let me on the plane. I was 120 kilos. I wasn't the professional athlete I used to be only 5-6 years ago. My mental health, my physical health, my emotional health was so fraught that I could break at any time. But all of a sudden, I had a new goal. I had a new mission. I had a new purpose. It wasn't just about the accolade of getting a world record. It's the fact we were doing it for Wooden Spoon, the most incredible charity in the UK, helping disadvantaged children. And it all started to make sense. 12, 13 years old, I was the disadvantaged child. And rugby, it gave me a new chance in life. I got a scholarship. Here I am, fighting a new battle, being able to raise money for children that look like me. So I said yes. And that's when the battle with addiction and the battle with rebuilding myself perfectly aligned.
Oh, it's too seldom that people don't talk about it. You know, especially now in this podcast for CEOs, entrepreneurs, and founders. It's always we see the success. You know, we say overnight, those 10 years overnight success. But how many battles the people also have to have to deal with. I had one entrepreneur here who sold his business for 107 million, and I thought, wow, you must be the most happiest person. That must be the top of the entrepreneurial dream. And he said it was the most saddest day of my life. I felt in such a deep depression. And you now mentioned the same thing.
Yeah.
What can we tell the listeners who maybe face this today to get out of it?
Let me share some stats.
Yes, please.
You are not alone. I'll talk about being a CEO because we need to really talk about what it means and the risks and the ego that we'll have to have because we feel we need to represent and look and be something. And it's a very dangerous place to be because we're also trying to make sure we can pay staff, be successful. And when you're a CEO or a founder, you are on the edge constantly of success and failure. But let me explain why our listeners aren't alone. World Health Organization statistics for 2024. 1 in 8 adults globally dealing with mental health. Over 1 billion people. Nearly 300 million people dealing with diagnosable anxiety and depression. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Last year, every 40 seconds, there was a tragedy of somebody taking their own life. 800,000 people, 800,000 suicides. The UK, where I'm from, biggest killer in men under 50 isn't cancer, isn't heart disease, it's suicide. So for me, this new chapter in my life is to be completely vulnerable. Say, okay, I look a certain way, I have a story, I created success, I nearly lost it all. It didn't mean anything because I didn't have the ability to even sit and talk to the people closest to me. If I can speak openly, honestly, on platforms like this, we can talk about physical health. We both train, we care about what food we put in our body, we go to the gym, we run. What about our mental health? I saw Sadhguru at Kayan Festival a few weeks ago in Abu Dhabi. He said something that really resonated. He said, when we're children and we're at school, we teach them about all of these things. We teach them science, we teach them maths, we teach them English, we teach them about weird and wonderful creatures and geography. Why aren't we teaching our children to be human?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we teaching our children what these thoughts mean? Every thought becomes a feeling. Every feeling becomes a behavior. Behavior action. So if we can teach people the power of these thoughts as a child, imagine the world we create. And here we are in 2025, the most connected we've ever been, the most fortunate, most abundant planet. Imagine everything is instantaneous, yet we're the most disconnected, most depressed we've ever been. We are in an epidemic.
Wow. One of the solutions is AI in your understanding, because you want to use this technology also to help people on a scale. Can AI actually help?
I believe so. So I don't want to just focus on men's mental health, even though it's so incredibly close to my heart. But it doesn't matter what culture, to leaders in India, China, the US, UK, here in Dubai. And there is a real stigma if I use the word therapy. Now, if I turn around and said, well, we know a lot about coaching, right? You know, how many of our friends, amazing people we look up to, would be more than happy to invest in, okay, yeah, I've got a business coach, a life coach, I've got a personal trainer. But when we turn around and think about this, our friends have sat down and understood therapy, gone introspective, gone back and dealt with the inner child. Not many. And what we believe technology can do, what AI can do, is take this little thing that sits in our pocket, our phone, it's on us 24/7, and we can democratize therapy to make it accessible, to make it affordable, but also to potentially take away that stigma. Now, this is very exposed. The first time you did a podcast, even though you're incredibly successful, you're incredibly eloquent, you're brilliant at what you do. Remember that feeling in your stomach? Remember the doubt in your back of your mind? Well, imagine doing that when you're suffering with maybe some mental health or anxiety and depression.
Right.
What if all of a sudden we can create the ability for your first therapeutic intervention between you and whether it's Marisa App or AI or any of the other brilliant platforms out there, just want to break the stigma. Give them tools, give them an outlet, and direct them in the right way to be able to get the help they want. So yes, I do believe technology and AI is going to revolutionize mental health.
How far away are we from having it really used in mainstream? Is it already ready?
Yeah.
What's missing?
Safeguarding. So safeguarding is the big thing that sits with me, because so people ask me, AI doesn't have empathy. And I say, I remember being brought up in the 80s, and I remember whether it was my family, whether it was my teachers, whether it was my friends' parents, there seemed to be this level of respect and love and empathy. It's just everywhere. Everywhere. And I turn around and feel like now, the way society is going, the level of, we're fractured. I'm like, but where's our empathy? I can teach AI what it means to have empathy. I can teach AI how to respond, react in situations. And it's far more likely to always stick to those versus us as humans. So it's a really interesting conversation because, again, I look at decades and I look at us now. I'm like, well, where is sympathy? Where is empathy? We're less empathetic than I've ever experienced. I might get some negative comments for that. And I don't say it as a criticism. I say it as an observation. Say, how do we turn around and think about the way the press treat certain celebrities? Think about people in the UK. It's a really, really dangerous place. I can name several people that took their own life directly as a consequence of the pressure they were getting off of magazines, newspapers. How is that a world we live in? How is that empathy?
Yeah, I think, very deep. You also had some personal experience with some topics in that regard. I think it's very deep. How can we as CEOs protect ourselves from this or prevent proactively? On the one hand, yes, At one point, people need to get help, of course. But what do you think could have been differently in your life so you would kept that that working balance?
I wish I could have been more honest. I wish
To yourself?
To everyone, because ego is something. As a young CEO, I have to do this. I have to look this way. I have to be that. And
that means also talk about not mistakes, but more like questions in your mind to say.
Yeah. I think when you think about leadership,
yes,
the definition of it is kind of almost like, well, you have to be flawless.
Right.
You do this and you're stoic and you move forward, and whereas for me, and what I've learned is vulnerability is something that can be really inspiring, because I hope my team at RTT, they know who I am. They know it's not exactly, and they know it's not just me reading off a corporate script in terms of the type of CEO I should be. The way I should communicate, the check-ins I should do, tick, 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 how, the book on how to be a great CEO. They know they can come and talk to me, because the first thing I did was stand up and I told everybody in the business, this is my why. The reason I'm here, the reason I've stepped away from my other companies is because I lost a friend personally to suicide.
Glad to hear.
Thank you. And I asked myself, what can I do to prevent ever having to experience this again? What can I do to have an impact on the world? And working for another $1 billion company, or making building another ad agency, or whatever it may be, even though that would have been the easy path, life opens doors. And 1.5 years ago, I got introduced to John, Davey, and Marisa App, two co-founders, Marisa App, RTT, Inner Belief. And I was blinkered because I was still in, my old mindset. And then it started to all fall into place, and it all started to make sense. So as a leader, I stood up in front of the 120 people and just told them the truth.
Wow.
And I had a lump in my throat, and that vulnerability made people turn around and, wow, this is a guy that cares. This isn't a job. This is now my life. And most CEOs, founders, they feel exactly the same way. It's like a child, right? Your business is everything. The sacrifices you make, working without paying yourself for start, like all of these things, they see you in the end where you've got success and the houses and the cars and the watches and going on all traveling and stuff. People don't see the sacrifices. They don't see how much pain it can create. They only see, and I think it's important to just share the truth. And if we can teach CEOs to be vulnerable in the right environment, or build a collective where people like you and I are able to say, this is our story. This is what really happened.
Mm-hmm.
These are the mistakes I made. These were the wins. These are the things I would do again. This is what I learned. I don't believe in losses. I win and you learn.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, a positive mindset. And I think another hint I can add here is for the listeners to really understand, I think, to have a more holistic approach also in life. That means, balance. I think, you balance. Exactly. You focus so deeply on the success. But I have always those 5 elements I believe a CEO should master when it comes, on the one hand, to body and mind.
Yes.
I met great entrepreneurs, self-made billionaires who were so overweight that they hardly could walk. And with all respect, they said, Michael, I wish I would not paid with my health, basically. So I think body and mind, but not only body, but also mind, as we learned today. But on the other hand, it's also relationships with other people. but of course also with family. And the other way is, of course, also when it comes to career topics, to focus on that as well. If you fully mislead that, then it doesn't work. And investments, I had great entrepreneurs who invested everything in a business, and then the business went away. And
I've been there.
Yeah.
Made it all, lost it all, made it all.
Exactly. So it's like kind of you go to a casino, but with a bit less risk, I hope. But you kind of go all in. And last but not least, I think it's also investment, and then celebrate life sometimes. I think we sometimes too often then in a rat race, and sometimes we just take a step back. We in our company do always a vacation once a year, and just come together and also have in the evening some barbecue and look at the bigger picture and just enjoy it.
Yeah, I fly to London next week to do that.
Nice.
To meet with the UK team and again celebrate one another and just spend some time outside of the business. And I think that's super important. When I'm back in Dubai again during Ramadan, taking the team for iftar, and again just celebrating each of us as individuals. All of our unique cultures and faiths and beliefs, but how we share that common goal is so powerful. One of the things you mentioned there in terms of sacrifice and mistakes, I don't know if you can share it on the podcast.
Of course.
But there's Steve Jobs' last message.
Right.
That hit home really, really hard because
at the university where I think
it's when he spoke about the mistakes.
Yeah.
So when he sat there, and he had such a obsession and belief he was going to change humanity through technology. And he did. But the reality of how far he was willing to go, and actually, was it worth the sacrifices? His relationship with his children, and eventually with health. And I think as I've got older and I've become more conscious of what it means for me to be the best CEO I can be, I realized that I have to look after those elements of my life. So now I practice these things. My physical, mental, emotional health are all my priority, because without that, I can't be the person I need to be to create this success in this company.
That's so deep and important. I think it would be so interesting to meet your 20-year-old self, and this person listening to you today. But if you could tell this person something, what would you tell them? Yourself and
Marisa's helped me with this. We've done some work together. You're enough. Marisa's book, I Am Enough. I didn't realize that a lot of my motivation, a lot of my drive, a lot of me being relentless in sport, business, even in my personal life, was me trying to compensate the fact that deep down I didn't think I was enough. I was driving myself forward to succeed, all these different aspects, because I was trying to fill this void, this deep void where probably I was hiding the fact I didn't have the confidence. I didn't think I was good enough. And what I would tell myself now is, you are enough. Each and every one of us are enough, and we need to sometimes really give ourselves a pat on the back. Marisa did something we were at Mind Valley with Vishen Lakhani and the team, and Marisa got up on stage and she did this thing called upgrading the child. A very powerful hypnosis. We went back and I met myself as 5-year-old Ben, and it was lovely, and I kind of reconnected, and it's a very powerful practice. But the thing that really got me is she got me to hold my hand and got me to walk into my home and compare where I was when I was a child and everything I'd achieved. And now I am stood on my balcony, top floor, looking out over Dubai with, I have this beautiful view of Burj Khalifa, Museum of the Future. I can see Burj Al Arab. It's just, and I was like telling myself, what you've done. Mm-hmm. Look at what you've done. This boy from a working class family in a really tough part of Bristol, and here I am in probably the greatest city in the world, living on the top floor, looking out, and first time I just stopped. I'm proud of you. And I think sometimes we have to stop and go back to those moments where life we're living right now is beyond our dreams, way beyond our dreams, way beyond our expectations when we were 7, 12, 15, 18, 21, 25. But there's this thing with human nature right now where it's never enough. I need a bigger house. I need a new car. I need this watch. I need this. I need this. I need to eat at the best restaurant. Stop. Be still. Celebrate who you are. Celebrate how far you've come. And it really changes.
Ben, thank you so much for this very deep conversation. I'm so happy we talked about it, about this very important topic of mental health.
Thank you.
Especially now for CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs. And I'm super excited to see what all comes out of it, and also how AI can help us in today's world. So, Ben, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on. Watch this space. We'll be launching the Marisa App AI very, very soon. Innerbelief.com, which is our therapy platform. We want to change that statistic. That billion become 500 million, less and less. And that's our mission for 2030. And if there's any CEOs out there feel some of the emotions, some of the things that I've experienced, then feel free to add me on LinkedIn or find me on Instagram. I'd be more than happy to give you some time and share my story on how I got through it and help you get through it as well.
Thank you so much. We're happy to connect and to support this mission. Amazing. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Before you go, a quick note to all the entrepreneurial listeners out there. If you're looking for a reliable and efficient way to scale your online business and payments, I highly recommend checking out Kloep.com. It's designed to streamline your processes from payment processing to customer management, all in one platform. Whether you're just starting out or you're looking to scale up, Kloep provides the tools you need to succeed. Visit Kloep.com today and see how it can transform your business operations. Dive in and start optimizing your sales processes now.